Kia ora, everyone. Welcome to FEP Mapping with myself and Alastair from New Zealand Landcare Trust. So I'm going to let Alastair introduce himself and a little bit about Landcare Trust before I bore you with my blathering.
Thanks, Alison. So thanks everyone for coming and attending tonight. Now, just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. So I'm really keen for everyone who's out there in the world of virtual to hop onto the chat and put your name and where you're from and a little bit about yourselves onto there as kind of a starting point for tonight, because that would be great that we fill up the chat. And also you'll see on that tab on the side that there is a Q&A button as well. And we're really interested in you guys asking questions, and hopefully we'll come up with some great answers for you too as well. So I'm Alastair Cole from the New Zealand Landcare Trust. I'm Manawatu Whanganui Regional Coordinator, but I also coordinate mapping nationally for the New Zealand Landcare Trust. So it's really great to be here tonight and to have FarmIQ showcase their tool as well. So we're going to make a start. Was there anything in addition that you wanted to say, Alison?
No, I think I'm just looking at everybody who's signing in here. It's fantastic. Welcome, everyone. This is awesome.
So again, we're going to just do a generic slide for you about our trust, because actually lots of people don't know too much about us. And the thing that I really want to emphasize here is that we are an independent, not-for-profit organisation. So you'll see tonight that we've kind of partnered alongside a business, alongside FarmIQ, who are doing this. But and that's because we have actually, seen their tool and we think it's pretty good, and are really keen to let you guys see and make your call on that. So we will keep progressing on. So what are the benefits of a digital map? And Alison, you can chip in here whenever you feel you need to. But I mean, in my mind, the benefit of a digital map, and I mean, we're talking mapping tonight. Everyone knows that. So the benefit of a digital map is that it's adaptable. It's not just a piece of paper that you've got in front of you, and if you want to adapt it, you're drawing with a pen all over it. You're actually able to adapt it over time, add layers, and actually make it really fit for purpose over time. So that's really what we're keen on people to learn how to do, learn what tools are out there, and to have a go as much as anything. That's the key here, is that we want you all to have a go and to get into it.
The benefits, the main benefits that I find with digital farm maps is that they're scalable, and they're highly flexible. So you can do as little as much as you want, and then you can invite third parties in to add their bits and pieces. You can dive in and out when you want to. We've got lots of customers at FarmIQ that go in and put all their health and safety bits and pieces into their map, or they might plot their culverts, or they might start planning what they're going to do with fencing, and then they perhaps won't do anything more to their map for another 3 or 4 months. So you can dive in and out, and your data's always there. And of course, that one of the key things that is very relevant as we speak is you can adapt and maneuver your map with policy as it flexes and changes. I'm sure that there'll be lots of people out there who have heard about the National Policy Statement for Fresh Water. It's come out from central government, and obviously some of you might be also obliged to meet some local regional council requirements as well. So being able to flex and change with those requirements in your map is my favourite feature of digital maps. Cool.
So how do we get started? And I think as much as anything, when you're getting started on this journey to build yourself your map, is to gather relevant information. And there's some really great sources of information out there, and we'll go into a little bit more detail on that as we go along. But also talking about the right software. So there are lots of different software choices out there. They have pros and cons between them. Some are really quite technical to actually get your heads into. And, you kind of need to do some pretty serious training to actually get your head into it well. And there's others which are really limiting. too as well. And I'd put Google into that box. Quite limiting. You're quite limited at the sort of amount of layers and the things that you can do, but you can share it. So it really just depends on what you're wanting to achieve with your map as to the software that you choose. So look, if anyone's got any questions around that, I'm all ears. You can throw that into the question box, or feel free to get in touch with me at the New Zealand Landcare Trust at a later date if you want any advice on that.
And I can see, Alastair, tonight we've got quite a number of FarmIQ users attending, so that's great. So they'll be familiar with how it all works, hopefully, and we can give you some top tips and pointers going forward. Are you going to click next slide, Al?
Yeah, I'll do that. There you go. So you can start with the first few, Alison.
Right. So where can you get some suitable data and files from? So when we talk about files, we talk about shape files or mapping data in a format that you can upload into whatever software that you like. So in FarmIQ, you can upload what we call shape files, which are GIS-based files, and they're generally polygons or lines, so waterways and points, which might be troughs or trees or something else that you've mapped. You can get some really, really good and very accurate data from your regional and district councils. So cadastral data in the form of your farm boundary. Even if you're really just getting started, you can ask regional council or district council for files like that. Your farm consultant, if you use a consultant, often has some really good files and data that can go into your FEP and populate your map. And FERC companies will obviously have a map of your farm. And so you can call them. I think there is a charge, but they will give you the shape file of your farm with all its paddocks and whatnot. I think Ravensdown charge between $80 and $120 for the shape file of your farm. And then of course there's TrackMap. Now FarmIQ integrates fully with TrackMap, and you can give TrackMap a call and say, hey, can you please send the shape file of my farm and my paddocks to my FarmIQ account, and they'll do that, and then we can populate it straight into FarmIQ for you. So that's a really handy source that saves a lot of farmer time sitting in front of a computer trying to plot your own paddocks and plot your own boundary, scrolling in and scrolling out and trying to find where the fence lines and bits and pieces are.
And so then from my end, I've thrown 4 points in there, 4 websites in there that are really great sources of environmental data in particular. So the Land Information New Zealand site, data.lins.govt.nz, gives you some really great information around land title. It doesn't give property boundary, but it gives land title. So you might have multiple land titles as part of your whole farm. So some great information there that can be brought in, but along with your roads and potentially things like lakes and whatnot. Then as well, we've got data at MFE, so MFE being Ministry for the Environment, and they have a huge amount of catchment and waterway and freshwater data within their site. Then Coordinates, who give all kinds of really interesting information, and they've got a bucket load of stuff in there. And then Lyris, which is Landcare Research, their portal for getting information out of there, and that's where you can get things like land use capability out of that portal, along with soils and vegetation information. So all of that combined, and all of that's free. It's all available to you, along with imagery and various other different things as well. And so really, really great site for you to go and have a look at, and to be able to kind of fill your map in right from the outset.
Yep, it's pretty good. One caveat there with the soils information from LRIS, Al, is that it will give you generic soil orders. It won't give you soil siblings. So it will tell you whether you've got an allophanic soil and where that is, but it won't give you the soil names. And you
have to be able to understand the key too as well, and that's half the battle actually. But what it does is it gives you those kind of the generic outlines. And one of the things that you often find is that it's actually quite inaccurate. And I guess that's really the interesting one, is actually then to compare it with information that might be collected by a soil mapper who comes onto your place to do more advanced soil mapping too as well. So really good stuff to kind of get you going. I mean, this is all about kind of making a start as much as anything. But you know, as you go on, as we said, the map develops, the map adapts, and you can get more advanced and get higher quality data to actually use to help you with your decision making. So we've kind of covered a little bit of this kind of stuff, all the things that you might want to think about on having on your farm map. One thing that I will highlight on there, which I think is one which is really topical, something that I think all landowners are very much thinking about nowadays, is critical source areas. Now, these are areas where you're getting potential, you know, they are seasonally flowing areas around your farm that will only potentially run when there's been very high rainfall, and that is a direct line of water and contamination and contaminants into waterways. So one that I think identifying where those kind of seasonally flowing areas and those depressions within there, and then learning how to manage around that. So being able to identify that on a map is really powerful because it helps you with your thinking about your management practice.
Yeah, so consultants will, critical source areas is a bit of an umbrella term really for areas that present high risk to contaminating water, or high risk to water quality basically. So a critical source area could even be a bridge over a small stream or a river where you've got your cows crossing over it twice a day, going, you know, out to grazing and back into the shed, and the bridge doesn't have a lip on it, so any manure and mud and whatnot as they're crossing that bridge twice a day will get washed off in a rain event or kicked off, you know, as it gets muddier and muddier. So critical source areas, just remember, is an umbrella term for high risk areas to water quality. And I'm just going to touch on, just go back just 1 second now. I'm just going to touch on land management units. Land management units is an FEP or a farm environment planning term for blocks. So, and we call LM, or we treat LMUs exactly the same way as you would a block. So you would, and an LMU is basically an area of land that could be a series of paddocks, contiguous paddocks, or not, as the case may be, that are treated in the same way. So it might be your woodlot, it might be your cropping block, it might be your winter grazing block, it might be an area of marginal land that you're planning to retire. So you would split your FEP up into LMUs, and then you would talk to each LMU on how you're going to mitigate losses and contaminants to water. Yeah, I hope that answers a couple of questions. By the way, and I forgot to say at the beginning, we love questions, so fire them through, and if we can answer them in the slide, we will absolutely do that. Otherwise, we will save some time at the end for a Q&A session. Best practice, you go, Al.
Yeah. So I think as much as anything, what you're trying to do with your map is you're trying to build your layers one on top of the other, and by trying to keep them as separate as you can, to actually identifying, you know, what particular area you're going to focus on, enables you to switch things on and switch things off and not have to break them out later, because that can actually be quite a painful process to go through. So by layering up and going through that process, you're going to end up saving yourself some time in the end. So as it says, creating separate features, potentially one of them might be something like waterways, where you're going to identify all of your rivers, the other one being your fences, the other ones being maybe your CSAs that you're going to do with a line. And choose, and I guess that one of the things about it, this kind of system is you kind of choose between those, as Alison was saying earlier, that point, you know, being a point on a map like a farm trough or or something in between, something like that, versus a line which might be a waterway that's running through, versus a polygon which might be a whole farm paddock.
A good example of creating separate existing and planned feature layers would be fencing. So fencing of waterways or riparian planting. So you would create a layer that is all your existing riparian planting and your existing fencing. So you can show an auditor, if an auditor comes in and says, okay, I want to see what's there already. You've got one simple layer that's all your existing fencing, and then you would set up another layer with your planned fencing. And in FarmIQ, we have in FarmIQ FEP, we have quite a good functionality where you can actually plan your objectives and tasks in conjunction with what you're doing in your map. So you might say, I'm going to, in the 2021 season, I'm going to plant 5 kilometres of this particular waterway with riparian planting, and I'm going to fence that off as well. So that would be a separate layer as well. So it would be your planned, I'd name it, planned 2021 season riparian planting, planned 2021 season fencing, and that also helps contribute to your financial forecasting for what you've got coming up. So you can see on your map what's existing, and then you can see also on your map what's planned.
I think one of the other real benefits of doing it in that kind of format as well is you can actually measure. And I think measurement is one of the critical things that I guess is the benefit of a digital map, is that by then doing your one line being your new riparian fence, you can then click on that and then identify, well, actually that's 200 metres long. You know, and that's pretty precise too as well when you're talking around this kind of mapping stuff. So that means that you know when you're calling your fencer and exactly what you're going to be up for, and you know how much to purchase too as well, with a pretty good level of accuracy. So it provides a massive advantage to you to with your planning.
Yeah. And point 2 on their best practice is use official layers and files where you can. So as we talked about in a slide earlier around where to get data from, say you used your the river classification file from Ministry for the Environment, you can pull that. You can pull all your streams, so streams from order 1 to 7, so that they're permanent streams as well. They're not intermittent. I know that. So I've got somebody in here from Cambridge as well, so who'll be in the PC1 catchment. Will know all about the difference between intermittent and permanent streams and waterways. But you can pull certain files from, and in FarmIQ you can upload layer shape files directly in. So if you've got a waterways file, you can, which is an official waterways file, you can pop that straight into FarmIQ and it populates it for you, rather than you having to sit there for hours and mapping out where you're zooming in and looking to see where your waterways might be. So try and use official layers if you can, and get that data from people who prepare that data really well for you. I'm going to talk to point 3 because I have a reasonable level of OCD. Check your spelling when naming your features. I had a 3-hour meeting with Waikato Regional Council today on data standards and terminology, and the need for us to have, or New Zealand to have, a national terminology across regional councils when it comes to farm environment planning in particular. And right away, from the most basic thing that in Southland farm environment plans are called farm environment management plans. In Horizons, they're called whole farm plans. And Waikato, they're called farm environment plans. So even from the at a basic level, we need all our councils talking the same language and using the same terminology. So when you're preparing your farm map and your FEP, try and use good standard terminology, and check your spelling as well.
And I think my point to add to that is I completely agree. Making sure that we are as careful as we can be, and making sure that we're trying to use the correct terminology. But if a mistake is made and you end up, the beauty of a digital map is you can go back and change it later, and you're not going to end up in too much of a pickle. So I think I'll emphasize again, make a start, and actually don't worry if you make some mistakes along the way. In the end, because it's a digital map, you can make mistakes and you can correct them. I guess that's one of the beauties of you guys doing it yourselves too, as well, is you have the ability to do that, where it can be much more difficult if you've got a third party doing it for you.
Yeah. We've got a question from Catty. I know who you are, Catty. While it's great to have such a large amount of free spatial layer files on offer, a lot of the national data is very broad scale. So farm level streams might not be very accurate. Just something to keep in mind. Thank you, Catty. Catty is a freshwater ecologist for the Cawthron Institute, I believe. So yes, you're absolutely right. And we also have to keep in mind that we're doing farm level stuff here. So and getting everybody just to get in there and get started, and which is a really nice segue into the next slide, isn't it, Al?
It is. I mean, I'll just add to that with Cutty, and I mean, this is the beauty of going and grabbing something from a national data set like MFE or something like that, and it can be quite coarse scale, just like we were talking about with the land use capability layers, where it might not actually fit the farm perfectly, but that actually then enables us to make it more precise as we go on to actually make it fit for purpose for the farm too as well.
So our top tips from a mapping perspective, and my favorite one really, and it doesn't apply just to farm mapping. It applies to data entry and recording stuff, whether that's in FarmIQ or any farm management system tool. Once your data is in, it's in. So just keep calm and map on, and eyes on the prize, really. Yeah.
Don't worry about making mistakes. Just as much as anything, make a start. That would be my real suggestion to all of you out there.
Remember to click save, obviously, and if you are struggling, or you can't get your paddock lines exactly the way they should be, or something's missing, or you don't know how to do something, especially in FarmIQ. We have I'm sure all our FarmIQ users know, but we have a wonderful support team that work between 8 and 5 on weekdays. You can pick them up, you can phone them up 0800, and they will talk you through how to do whatever it is that you need to do in your farm map or your FEP or any other part of FarmIQ. So that's all pretty helpful. But if you're using other software, or you just have a bit of a motivational issue around getting started, ask for help. Go and talk to people that you trust, and ask them how to get started.
Cool.
Good. What's next?
What's next? Hey?
Yeah, I know. Have we got any questions so far? Oh, actually, Edgar.
One in the Q&A that we probably need to address, but I thought that we could do that when we hop out, and you can show the FarmIQ map, Alison, and we can talk a little bit more about that. What do you reckon?
All right, Edgar, hang on in there. We're going to get to that question. So what's next for farm environment mapping? So planning, rather. So we have Landcare, New Zealand Landcare Trust and FarmIQ have the final webinar of this particular series in 2 weeks' time. So exactly 2 weeks' time to tonight. And it's on planning and implementing your FEP goals and objectives. So it's all very well having a map and having an FEP and whatnot, but doing a really effective one and knowing what to put in there that will satisfy gnarly questions from auditors or council or stakeholders or funding applications, or all sorts of stuff like that, is a completely different thing. So Nathan Burke-Pyle and myself will be talking through how to really set your goals, set your tasks and objectives, and how to make your FEP a really living, breathing document that you or plan that you stick to. Yeah. So that's next. So don't forget to sign up for that. I think the sign up registration we've got Elaine sitting in the background that is lurking around somewhere. Question time. All right, let's go.
I've seen some. There's two questions in the Q&A at the moment, Alison, and I think the first one would be pretty cool to make a start on. So if you wanted to bring up FarmIQ and we can look at that orange paddock lines that were in there. So I think I guess the beautiful thing, Edgar, is that this you map your own destiny, really. You know, if you want your orange paddock line to be narrower, to be a better, to be easier for you to work with, you can do that, can't you, Alison?
In FarmIQ, that is set, so your paddock lines are set. You can't actually, unlike ArcGIS Pro, where you can choose the thickness and the color and whatnot, your paddock lines and the boundary of your farm will always be orange, I believe. I'm going to, Edgar, if you are, can you just let me know via chat whether you are a FarmIQ user? And if you are, I will get somebody from support to confirm that with you, but I'm pretty sure that the paddock lines are thick because they are paddock lines. Yeah, so they'd be paddock fence lines, I guess. And then the external boundary of the, the external boundary of the farm is also orange. Yes. The next question, Al, I think is up for you.
Yes. So catchment group mapping, it really depends on what you want to achieve for your catchment group, and exactly where you kind of want to start. Are you trying to use this map to share and to kind of promote what you're doing amongst the wider public? In which case you probably need a different piece of software than another piece of software which might have some more advanced features that you can do some more analysis with. So it really depends on what you want to achieve. If you wanted to go for gold-plated, you'd probably be looking at Esri ArcGIS Pro. But the fact of the matter is that's a pretty expensive proposition generally for people to do, and it requires some pretty significant training. I'm actually not very good at using ArcGIS, I must say. I'm much better at using Q, but and I've got a lot of learning to do to actually get to where I need to be with Arc if we're going down that way. So it really just depends on what you're trying to achieve. And certainly keen to provide you some kind of further guidance around that. We do use Google as a basic platform that can actually be quite good, but it's very limiting, as I was saying earlier. You have to really package things quite carefully so that it works and you can actually show things off well.
Yeah, and Zan, I think that's how you pronounce your name. If you're asking because you are a farmer within a catchment group, or you might be a catchment group coordinator or administrator for a group of farmers, get in touch with us at FarmIQ, because we do have a catchment product for an FEP catchment product for catchment groups, where you can, as a catchment, you can bring in all your farms underneath, and then the catchment administers the FarmIQ account, but you can see individual farm level data. Farmers can't see each other's data, but you can, the catchment administration, if you like, has a dashboard, and you can see what's going on across the farms in a very broad sense. So you might be able to see the total of fencing that's been done across all farms. You might be able to see how many, the total length of waterways across farms. So the dashboard is tailor-made. There's a setup cost within FarmIQ because it's a bit of dev capacity time for us, but it is a really good catchment product that you can bring. I think it's minimum 10 farms, all the way up to 1,000. We've got an organisation that's got up to 1,000 farms sitting in underneath. So yeah, so give us a call if you are a catchment administrator or keen.
Yeah. That's great. Kati has another question for us, which is, can the information land managers have collected be exported? The answer is yes, it can. Generally, regional councils and land managers and various different organisations like that will use a shapefile format, .shp format, and that can be directly imported into the likes of FarmIQ, or it can actually be manipulated into a whole bunch of different formats for different facets. So look, I think that once the data has been built, it's very, very transferable. So I think that's probably the key there. Karma, where you're saying, I assume you mean Google Earth Pro. No, there are several different Google programs that offer you mapping capability. One is Google My Maps. And so if you type in mymaps.google.com, that is a basic one that you can import and export files into. But then there's also Google Earth Standard, which is very limiting. And then there is the Pro software too as well. And I mean, it really depends on what you're trying to achieve. I'm not a huge fan of Google Earth Pro because it uses a lot of bandwidth, and it can be really quite slow in delivering stuff. And also, one annoying thing about Google is they have a specific format that they do all of their mapping in, which is different to the format that the regional council uses, and it's different to the format that most people use, called KML. And it means that you have to transfer everything into their format and then transfer it back again. So it's a bit painful, but nonetheless, potentially something that you want to look at.
Craig S has got a question. What's the cost of a catchment administration license for FarmIQ? Craig, we'll need to take this offline because it's reasonably bespoke, if you like, as far as structure and cost is concerned. So please flip me an email after this and we can set up a time to talk about that. And then somebody else in chat has said, we have a catchment of only 3 properties. We can help you out. It won't be under the catchment. You won't need the catchment structure for that, CJM, but we can help you out. So with Farm Environment Plan and farm mapping. So there is help in FarmIQ if that's what you need. So CJM, flip me an email as well afterwards.
Right. Yeah.
Any other questions? Anyone? How are we getting on? I might just do a quick kind of in chat. I might just do a quick poll for anybody who's keen to learn more about FarmIQ or mapping in FarmIQ, but also for our FarmIQ users. I can see there's quite a few in here actually tonight, which is great. Would you like some support for this is for our FarmIQ users. Would you like some support creating an effective map, and would you like some support with actually doing your FEP in FarmIQ? If you would, please just put your yes or a no in there, and I will make sure I get in touch from the transcript after this.
Are there any other questions from anyone that we haven't I see Sandra S has just put up a question. When you were talking about getting data, from, it sounded like you were saying shake files, which I'm not sure is correct. No, it is shape files, SHAP, shape files, Sandra, and that's kind of the standard vector style file, and vectors being points, lines, and polygons. There's 3 different types that you can use across multiple platforms. And it's generally what we use to map. So you can see on Alison's map, which is up on the screen, you can see all of the paddocks themselves. Those are all polygons. They're all they're all linked together boxes, but of a weird shape. And then you can see in blue the waterway that's flowing down. That's a line, so just one single line which isn't joined together. And then you also get some of the dots in there. So we've got culverts there, do we, on that, yes, which is your point file.
Culverts and offal rubbish pit up here.
And so you tend to find in the GIS that there's the base file, which you've got. So beautiful satellite photo that features on FarmIQ. That's your raster file, which sits underneath it all. And on top of that, you've got all of those points and lines and polygons, your vector layers that sit over the top of your map. And that's what makes up generally a GIS, along with its database that sits in behind it. So all of them kind of operate to that kind of level. And it really just depends on how advanced you want to go, and how much functionality you need, as to which piece of software you choose.
Yeah, and you can go as complex or as easy to use as you like. I don't know about you, but I would much rather be outside feeding out and checking my stock and doing all my farmy jobs than trying to get my head around a complicated piece of software. So drawing lines, sitting down, putting your data in, as we said earlier, once your data's in, it's in, but make it easy for yourself and choose what you're most capable or most comfortable with, I guess. Yeah. Sandra S, fabulous, thank you. Oh, you're very welcome, Sandra. Chris P.
On the FarmIQ app, is it possible to capture point locations out in the field, like culverts?
Culverts.
So that's a really great question. I'm going to leave that to you, Alison.
Thanks.
Can you do that? FarmIQ?
When you in the health and safety module, you can. So if you're out on farm and you come across a tomo or a hazard, you can plot it then in there on the app, on the phone app. But it puts it into your health and safety module. It doesn't put it into your FEP or other features. So what I would suggest is if you come out, if you are out on farm and you want an exact GPS location of your culvert or of your bridge or stop crossing and whatnot, plot it into your health and safety. And then when you're back in front of your desktop, just copy over the top of it and put it into your FEP features. Yeah, I know it sounds a little bit laborious, but that's something that's coming, Chris, is being able to point to plot things when you're out in the field. That's coming in the new app, apparently.
And I mean, it's going to be a challenge with any sort of developing any GIS is ease of functionality versus advanced features. And actually, look, I think from seeing FarmIQ and what it has to offer, I think that they've kind of, it's striking a balance. And actually, one of the things that I really like about FarmIQ is the fact that it offers you the ability to add all of the numbers in, and to actually populate your farm environment plan like that. Whereas you really can't do that just with a standard piece of mapping software. So I guess that's its advantage.
Now I'm just going to go back to the slides very quickly because Dave has said you're breaking up pretty badly. Try dropping the map. So the map might be chewing up a bit of your bandwidth there, people. So we'll just go back here, and I'm just going to go back to that slide there, planning and implementing your FEP goals and other objectives. So I can see that Elaine has put up a link to register for that webinar in a couple of weeks' time. So do make most of that. And also there's a handout under the handouts tab. There's our FarmIQ step-by-step guide to getting your FEP started. And there's lots of information in there into what to put in your map. So features and things that you need to include in your FEP map in particular. So do download that. It's free, obviously. And where you go, give us, and then you're more than welcome to email any of us at FarmIQ with more questions later. Andrew, oh, this is gorgeous. I'm an 84-year-old and not too good with this stuff, but once shown, I reckon I'd find my way around. All right, Andrew. We would love to help you get started. Yeah. We'd love to get you help started. Yeah. So, Andrew, what we will do is we will email you this coming week before the end of the week, and we'll get in touch with you and we'll help you get started. Totally. Sandra S says, yes, that made it clearer when the map's gone. Bit of space. Sorry, everyone. Any more questions?
If not, I think I will say a big thank you for coming along tonight to our webinar. There's been some great questions. I hope that a lot of you move on and listen to Alison and Nathan in a couple of weeks' time. That should be really good. Our trust is very much all about action on the ground. So you know, it's where the rubber hits the road is how you implement and actually get stuck in. So I really encourage you to all join in.
Yeah, I think it's great. New Zealand Landcare Trust is one of my favourite organisations, and the support that they help you with and the work that they do is very, very worthy. And so, you know, if you need more information or you need some help or support to get started, then they're a really, really good place to start. So I will say thank you everyone for coming tonight, and thank you for thanking us. That's great. Awesome feedback. Thank you, everyone. Do fire questions through to, I think my email address is up there. Thank you, Elaine. So if you've got questions about FarmIQ and FEPing and mapping and all that sort of shenanigans, I am more than happy to help you. So please don't be backward in coming forwards. And I'll say good night. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thanks, everyone.
See you.
Cheers.